my beautiful bookish friends, I'm Bowen and welcome to my channel. This video is going to be my May wrap up. If I sound a little bit like I'm underwater, that is because I have a little bit of a cold. I was supposed to film this on the 1st, and I did my makeup and I did my hair and I looked cute and I was running errands, and then I decided I couldn't be asked to film and I went to my friend's house instead because I am the queen of the procrastination nation. So I went round my friend's house and she was a little bit sick and I happened to have caught it, and this is my punishment for not filming on the day that I told myself I was going to. Unfortunately, this is what we're getting. I am really sorry, but on the bright side, because you're on the other side of the screen, you can't catch it, so yay! But May was a really good reading month for me, especially in comparison to April, where I was really slumping. I ran out of that reading slump in May, where I read 17 books. So let's get into all of the books that I read in the month of May. So we're going to start with Breakaway by Kelly Jamieson. I gave this a 2.75 and a 4 spice rating. This is another one of those books that's a case of like giant man, pocket-sized woman. Now, I don't think she is actually as small as they fucking harp on about in this book, because she's my height. She's 5'2". Maybe it's just the fact that I have all of the audacity of a 6'7" mediocre white man, but I don't think I'm that short. I think I'm below average height, but I don't think I'm like tiny pocket-sized woman. But they banged on and on and on about how small she is and how fragile she is and how he can fit his entire hand around her thigh. It's giving very Ali Hazelwood, where he puts her entire boob in her mouth kind of situation. Like, just not biologically possible. And it's one of those things that when they harp on about it so much, it just gets really annoying. This is a hockey romance between Jace and Remy that meet one night at a nightclub. She's trying to break out of the rut that she's been in, where she thinks that she's really boring, so she's trying to be more fun and interesting. And I mean, it was fine. It's not one I'm ever going to think about again, which is really unfortunate because this is one of the books I got at Rare. I mean, it's also signed and personalised, so it's kind of disappointing that I didn't really like this one all that much. But hey, at least I've read it now. So if nothing else, at least it's a book that's crossed off my physical TBR. Next we have How to Catch a Prince by Anna Ashley. I gave this one a 4-star and a 3 spice rating. I very much enjoyed this. It's very low stakes, low angst kind of vibes. It's giving the 2004 classic movie The Prince and Me, but make it gay. And I love that for this. I liked all the side characters and all the small town vibes. This is not one for people that like high angst, but this was just very small town cute and cozy and just wholesome gay romance, and I am here for that. If you're looking for a cute queer romance to read in June that's just low stakes, I strongly recommend this one. This is really cute. I'm very much looking forward to getting the rest of the series for this. And also, this is the special edition. It's got all the flowers on the pages here, and this is another one of the ones I got in Paris, so it's also signed and personalised, which I love. The next two books I'm going to talk about are also ones that I picked up while I was in Paris, and they're both by the same author. So I've got We'll Never Have Paris by Adriana Anders and Kink Camp Hunted, which is by the same author. So we're going to talk about We'll Never Have Paris first. I think I read this one at the wrong time of year, which I should have kind of worked out from the lights that kind of look like snow. This is more Christmassy than anything else, because our main characters, Colin and Jules, get stuck in a lift on Christmas Eve after living in the same apartment building in Paris for the last 3 months, and it's their just short, cute love story. I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars and a 2 spice rating. It's sort of insta-love, but because they've known each other in passing for a while, it's also sort of not. And also, I do like that this is a plus-size romance as well, which I was not expecting going into it, and that is always a great surprise. I really like this one. And then we have Kink Camp Hunted, which I obviously gave a 5 spice rating, and I gave it a 4.5 star. This is about Grace that goes to a kink camp with her friend, and she's like stretching her legs and trying new things when it comes to her sex life that feels really stilted. And there's one thing in particular that she really wants to try, and that's being chaste. It's very strong on the primal kink with this one. The two things about this that I really loved were, one, the atmosphere, because it's just so open and without shame, and Grace constantly is checking herself, just because if she doesn't like it, she's not yucking someone else's yum, even though to her it's a no, which I love that she's constantly checking herself with that. There's no toxicity, there's no shame when it comes to the kink camp. It's just free and open, and I loved the atmosphere of this. It sounded like a lot of fun. And the other thing that I loved is the relationship between Grace and Levi. It doesn't rush into an I love you. It's just two people that want to get to know each other better. There's no real I love you by the end of the book. It's just the start of a really hopeful relationship, and I love that for them. I hate when a book just rushes into an I love you just to put it in there, and this doesn't do that. I love this, and it sets up really well for the next book in the series, which I am really looking forward to getting to eventually. The next book I'm going to talk about is Nero by S.J. Tilley. I gave this one a 2.75 and a 4 spice rating. This book is about Nero and Peyton, and Nero is running from the police one day and walks in through the balcony doors of Peyton's apartment and just hides out at her place until the cops have gone. I'm not going to lie, this one really pissed me off, and mostly for the sake of Peyton. Like, she had no fucking idea who she was as a person. Now, she was 27 years old. It's a plus size romance as well, so I love that for her. And yes, it's a dark romance, so she's been through trauma, and I get that. But she was very much still in the victim mentality of that. She never learned what she liked or who she was as a person, and she just let Nero get away with whatever the fuck he wanted to do. He was stalking her, which I get it, it's a dark romance. I wanted her to have some form of fight in her. Even if it's just they had an argument one time about something stupid, but she was right. I just wanted her to stand up to him on something, anything, just something fucking trivial. And she doesn't. She honestly just is Play-Doh for whatever the fuck he wants to do. She had no personality. And I'm so annoyed that she had no personality other than victim, which is harsh, but it's also not inaccurate. I'm starting to discover that with dark romances, I like it when they're both dark, or she fights back and she gives as good as she gets. I want her to be feisty as fuck. I want her to come out swinging. I want it to be toxic from both ends, because that is the only way it works for me, because otherwise I'm there like, what are you doing? Because in this one, she even says, I'm just broken enough that I'll let him. Sweetie, you're not okay. Go get help. I'm not one of the dark romance girlies, is what I'm discovering. There is a dark romance vlog that's coming, and I will link that in the description down below when it comes out. Nah, this one wasn't for me. However, one that was for me was 9 Month Contract by Amy Dawes. I gave this a 4.5 and a 3 spice rating. This book follows Wyatt and Trista, and Wyatt is ready to settle down and have a family, and he's not met that person yet, so he's decided he just wants to have a kid. He's so ready to be a dad that he goes to a surrogacy agency to try and find a surrogate. But none of the ones he interviews really work for him, so his niece takes it upon herself to find him a surrogate, and she does in Trista. So Trista moves into the apartment above the barn on his property and then becomes a surrogate for him. I love this. I know that this is going to put a lot of people off because it's a surrogacy romance, but I love Amy Dawes' writing. I forgot genuinely just how much I loved Amy Dawes' writing, but this, I love it. The one thing I did like about this is the way they overcame the topic of children, because originally she didn't want kids, which is why she was happy to be a surrogate. But you can't have a relationship where one of you is a hard yes and the other one of you is a hard no, because no matter how much you love one another, that is just an incompatible relationship. But I love the way that they made it work, and I loved all the animals and the way that he just did loads of little acts of service for her, like getting her a new bed and filling up her car and bringing her breakfast every day. I just loved Wyatt so much. He's such an acts of service guy, and I really, really enjoyed this. Next, I listened to the audiobook for Be Still My Heart by Savar Miller and Emily McIntyre. I gave this one a 4 spice rating and a 4.25. This was every single kind of tension. It was murder mystery where Sloane was one of the detectives that came to the island that Lincoln worked on because he's the one that found the body. He is a big part of the investigation, but it's also like the sexual tension between the two of them. It's the murder mystery aspect. It's also what happened to the person that Lincoln lost years and years ago. The mystery itself was kind of predictable, especially the reason that the killer did what they did. It's bordering on cliche at this point, but I did really enjoy this. I love Emily McIntyre's writing, and this was my first ever Savar Miller book, so I'm really looking forward to picking up more books by her and see what I think. If you like romantic mystery type of plot lines, then I think you'll really enjoy this one because it was just so good. I also read another Emily McIntyre book this month, which was Twisted. I gave Twisted a 3.75 and a 4 spice rating. Don't get me wrong, I love this series. This one is probably my least favourite in the series so far. This is an Aladdin reimagining where it's Jafar and Jasmine, also known in this book as Yasmin and Julian. And Yasmin was such a people pleaser that it really got on my nerves. And I get it. As an ex-people pleaser myself, I get it. Oh my god, it was annoying. But I did like the fact that she didn't have to people please with him, because it was very enemies to lovers vibes. And it was age gap as well, so I think he's 36 and she's 22, which for me was too much. Honestly, Yasmin was kind of just naive, and I do like the fact that Julian did soften for her, but I do wish that she could have been more involved with his darker side, so she knows truly the type of man that he is, instead of like just having an abstract, like, I know he has killed someone. No, I wanted her to be involved with that, so it's like, I see you and I love you anyway. I did like the plot of this. The plot of this was really interesting, and I liked all the nods to the original Aladdin. The Disney one is the only one I've seen, but I do like all the nods to that with all the different characters. And I do love Emily McIntyre's writing. It's just this wasn't my favourite one. The next book I'm going to talk about is Big Bossy Problem by Lillian Monroe. I gave this one a 3.5 and a 2 spice rating. This book follows Marcus and Penny, and Penny is a dog walker for Marcus. It's a billionaire romance. When Marcus's niece unexpectedly moves in with him, he still has a full-time job and he can't take care of her. So he asks Penny to move in with him in order to help take care of his teenage niece. I didn't really care for this one. Honestly, the relationship that she has with his dog is more profound than the relationship she has with him. Aside from the dog walking, Penny runs her own business making clothes for dogs. Now, she has best friend Brian, who does all of like the computer side of it because she's not that great at it. Especially considering Penny's past, how she did not get severe levels of ick from her best friend is beyond me, because the first time that guy shows up on page, I want to just scrub myself down with bleach. It's subtle enough that I can almost see how she didn't get it. It just made me deeply uncomfortable. We discover later on why, but from the first page that he is on, immediately no. How do you have the type of trauma that you have and you can't see how incredibly creepy that man is? Strong pass. I mean, Marcus was fine, but I don't remember anything about him. Like, he was kind of boring. I remember really liking the first book in this series. I am convinced that I have read book 2 in this series. However, it's not showing on my Goodreads, so I'm very confused. But I'm convinced I've read the first 2 books in this series. This is book 3. It was fine, but it was just mediocre. So, on to the next one, which is going to be Sweetest in the Gale by Olivia Dade. I gave this one a 4.25 and a 1 spice rating. This is the last book in the Something About Marysburg series, and it's a collection of 3 novellas. We have Sweetest in the Gale, we have Unraveled, and Cover Me. I don't think this one was really necessary for the series, but I do like the fact that we did get a few little snippets of the different characters that we have met throughout the rest of the series. And as always, I just adore Olivia Dade's writing. I would probably say that Sweetest in the Gale and Cover Me were my favourites. I didn't really dislike Unraveled, but it was just not my personal cup of tea. Each of the 3 novellas in this are sweet, wholesome, hopeful stories about just 2 people falling in love. Each one of them is about a little under 100 pages each. I just thought they were so lovely. She always does the fantastic job with the strong female plus size main characters and the sweet, doting, worships the ground they walk on male main characters. If you've had too much of alpha holes, pick up Olivia Dade for just some sweet cinnamon rolly goodness. And I also love that there's artwork in this as well. The next book I'm going to talk about is The Succubus's Prize by Katie Robert. I gave this one a 3.75 and a 3 spice rating. This is part of the Deal with the Demon series. This one is an FF romance, and it also has characters across the entire gender spectrum as well, which Katie Robert, as always, does so well. This focuses a lot on religious trauma, so if you're just recovering from your religious trauma, then I feel like this could be a good one for you. I do not have religious trauma. I was raised atheist, but I can empathize with what the main character Belladonna is going through, and how when it comes to religion, trying to accept certain parts of herself is difficult, especially when it comes to her sexuality and her desires. And I liked how, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Ruskala, I think that was the succubi's name. I love how patient she was, and accepting and understanding when it came to the problem with Belladonna, of how she wouldn't advocate for herself. She would say yes to certain things because she thought that's what she was supposed to do, not because it's what she actually wanted. I think it was done with such care and consideration. I just don't think that this particular story was for me. It's not one of my favourite ones in the series, but it's also not my least favourite. I like the chemistry and I like the smut in this, and I'm very much looking forward to picking up more Katie Robert books, but this one just didn't quite hit for me. Next, we're going to talk about Savage Pet by Hattie Jacks. I gave this one a 2.75 and a 3 spice rating. Now, I will admit, I fully fucked up while I was reading this. When it comes to alien romances like this one, I normally try and binge them in one sitting, if not within like 2 days. This one, I picked up, read half of it, then put it down for a month and a half, and forgot every single thing that happened. So I probably should have gone back and reread more than just a couple of chapters. I should have gone back and reread the entire thing. But one thing I will say about this is it does cover the topic of addiction, and I don't think it was covered well, in my opinion. One of the things it kind of says is that love can fix addiction. If you just love me enough, then you'll not do this addictive thing. And that is just really toxic, even in fiction. Like, it's not okay to be like, if you love someone enough, your addiction will just go away. That's not how it works. I would be willing to try this author again. I just didn't really like that aspect of it. And it doesn't help as well that this is the second book in a series that once I got into it, I realized that you do really kind of have to read this in order. And I didn't do that. I think I would have to read this again, and I don't know whether my rating would change. But for right now, this is where it's sitting. Next, I read 2 books from the same series. I read Chase Me and I read Tease Me, both of them by Addie Award. I'm going to talk about Chase Me first, which I gave a 3.25 and a 3 spice rating. I listened to both of the books that I read in this series on audio because, quite frankly, they were really, really quick listens while I just did some housework. Honestly, I don't think this series overall is for me because I think the writing is really painfully cringe. Like, the plot was interesting enough, but the magic wasn't really well developed. There was some issues with the actual writing itself. The dialogue was just cringe, and it just didn't really work. And then with Tease Me, I gave it a 2-star and a 2 spice rating. This one was a lot shorter. This was only really a 4-hour audiobook, so that's the reason why I picked this one up, even after I didn't really like the first one all that much. Both of these are Dragon Shifter romances and Fated Mates, and I get that it's Fated Mates, but in this one, the Fated Mates was just so quick with the insta-love that it made me deeply uncomfortable. And also, because it was such quick insta-love, there was no real connection or chemistry between them, other than the mating bond and physical attraction. Because it happens so fast, they don't know each other. So that's just one thing about insta-love that just really gets on my nerves. And again, this one also had the cringy dialogue, the cringy writing, and the weird magic system. I don't think I would pick up any more books by Addie Award. Now, don't get me wrong, Amy Award, which is a different pen author, she does the Kingsman series, which I did like, but I think her fantasy ones are just not for me. So Addie Award, no. Amy Award, yes. So the next book I'm going to talk about is All I Wanted Was to Become a Scientist, But Now I Have an Alien Boyfriend by Petra Polano. I gave this one a 4.5 and a 3 spice rating. I love this series. This is going to be one of the series that I just think about all the time. This book follows Jesse and Graeth after the events of book 1, and she calls him Seth, as in Grey Seth. His name's Graeth. Why wouldn't you just call him Gareth? Like Gareth, Graeth. It's just, Grey Seth is just a weird one to me. But I loved how, like, OCD clean he is, and he keeps cleaning all the things around her. And she's like, he obviously finds me disgusting because he's trying to clean everything around me. And he's like, no, I just really don't want you to get sick. And I love them together. It's just one of those quieter love stories when it comes to alien romance, don't get me wrong. I love the plot. I love the story. This one is less smutty than book 1. But honestly, I love how patient Graeth was with her. I love how the story itself comes together. There's such good mental health representation throughout this. And this was just such a fun time. I cannot wait to get to the rest of this series. If the title doesn't draw you in, you will not like it. I love stupid, silly, long titles, and this was just my vibe. The next book I'm going to talk about is Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mehra. I gave this one a 4.5. This was honestly just a stupid, no thoughts in my brain, silly fun time, and I was 100% here for it. This book follows Evie, who gets a job working for the villain. He just goes by the villain for the majority of this book. Now, we do learn his name in this, but it's a spoiler, so I'm not going to tell you what it is. You can find out for yourself. We have Kingsley. I love Kingsley. Kingsley was genuinely my favourite character throughout all of this, and all of the shenanigans that Evie gets herself into, and just her banter and relationship with all of the characters that are in this office kind of environment was just so silly and fun. I need the rest of the books in this series, but also I need a spin-off between Blade and Becky in the worst way. I don't care if it's a novella. I need a Blade and Becky story so fucking bad. I've been watching the TikTok series for this pretty much since the beginning, I think, and I love it. I'm obsessed, and I've stopped watching it until I've read this. And now I'm apprehensive to continue watching it until I've read book 2, which doesn't come out until September, I believe. This was so much fun. I had such a good time with this. I'm so glad I finally got to it. And also, I love this cover. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't overly interested in the plot. I was interested in it, but not as much as the characters and the banter. Is it the best writing ever? No. Is it a stupid, goofy, fun time? 100% yes. I loved it. And the final book that I'm going to talk about in this video is When Women Were Dragons by Kelly Barnhill. I gave this one a 4.5. I tabbed the heck out of this book. Now, I've not tabbed a book in a while, but with this one, I felt it was absolutely necessary. It's set in an alternate 1955 in Wisconsin, and it follows our main character, Alex. So I'm just going to read you the tagline for this, because I'm not going to be good at explaining what this is about, because it's sort of like a magical realism type of thing. So it's in a world where girls and women are taught to be quiet, the dragons inside of them are about to be set free, and nothing will ever be the same again. This one is very strong on the feminine rage, and I feel like this is a book that is definitely going to divide a lot of people, but I loved it. The writing was beautiful and compelling, and the exploration of female rage through dragoning, of like the women turning literally into dragons through rage and finally being set free of the confines of having to keep small and keep quiet, and women are meant to be seen and not heard, and when they break free of that they become dragons and they can finally be happy and be themselves. And that is something that is feared because people fear dragons, right? So the metaphor in this of dragoning was done so well and was so beautiful, and it does such a beautiful job of highlighting the bullshit sexist rhetoric that still exists today. This is such a fabulous feminist read, and I absolutely ate this shit up with a spoon. And I strongly recommend that you guys read it too. It's so good. And that's it. That is all the books that I read in the month of May. So if you managed to get this far into the video, then leave a dragon emoji in the comments down below. But for now, thank you so much for stopping by. It has been lovely having you here. And I hope to see you in another video coming very soon. Bye.